Hey y'all, welcome back to another video here on the From the Farmyard podcast. Today we are once again adding a new episode to our series that we have titled Our Farmyard Friends. And if you joined us before, then you know the deal. But if you're new here, this is a show where we're bringing on a few people we know, may have just met, ones we call mentors, but most importantly, our friends, and we hope you will call them your friends as well. But enough from me. Let's get into this video and let our special guest introduce herself.
Hi, so I'm Kelsey. I'm from West Charleston, Vermont, which is also known as the Northeast Kingdom. It's a little bit of the boonies. I have neighbors, I do, but it's kind of spread out. It's a nice little area. But yeah, that's me.
Vermont. So what's the weather like up there in Vermont right now?
Well, we had like almost blizzard-like conditions here not that long ago. We got dumped on and it was looking like we were gonna have a white Christmas, and then just a few days ago we got poured on, and now we're actually in a flooding state up here. We've
Mm,
got quite a few homes that had to be evacuated in certain areas and roads closed down. So
mm.
now everything's a muddy mess. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah. We just had a bunch of snow, but well, not a bunch. We could have had more for Pennsylvania, but like we just got some snow, but it's been warmer. The weather's been really like fluctuating lately. It's just like with the cold and then it's like oh warm all of a sudden. For December, it's impressive for it to be like this warm right now.
We got a bunch of
Yeah.
a
So,
lot of rain.
so tell us
Yeah,
a
we
bit about your backstory. How or why you decided to start a farm or homestead, or how you got into it.
So I was an EMT on the ambulance, and I was working. One of my coworkers has his own little homestead. They raise bees, ducks, chickens. They just barely got into geese, actually. Funny story about that. But they, at the time, my boyfriend was telling me, he's like, "Oh, do you want to try maybe raising some ducks? I think you'd like it." Because I've just always been a huge animal lover. He knew that about me, and when I first met him, he had some ducks, which unfortunately were caught by a predator, but I loved them when he had them. So when he brought it up, I was like, yes, absolutely, I'd love to. So I hatched them out. We got an incubator from our friend and the eggs, and I hatched out a bunch of them. Only two ended up surviving and hatching. And then I added a couple more after the fact. I got a couple boys, and then I had those for about a year, and that's how I started. It was just very like small. I kept, but just for eggs and for pets mostly. And then my second year into it, I um I started just adding more, and I just started falling more in love with it. So it's just been fun, and ever since I kind of fell down the rabbit hole of it and kind of took it to a new level
Mm-hmm.
for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's cool. That's cool. Yeah.
Some ducks are very addicting.
Oh, I love my ducks. I honestly, they're my favorite thing on everything I have. I honestly prefer the ducks.
So
I prefer
how
the ducks over the chickens for sure.
what all do you raise?
So I raise ducks, geese, turkeys. I have one guinea hen. I had a pair, but the male was just too much of a problem, so we had to dispatch him. But
Mm-hmm.
we have all that. We one year we raised pigs. We don't do those anymore just because our space, we are limited. We're only on an acre. So
Mm.
we have to kind of maximize our space. And so we did the pigs that one year, and then the following year we took in some like meat ducks from a friend who they had gotten them from Tractor Supply. They bought them as pets, not knowing they were meat birds. So they were coming with all sorts of hip issues and stuff.
Yeah.
So I took on the females. I kept the females for pets and for eggs, and they did okay at first. One of them had hip issues from the start, and the males, they're too big. They were too big for my females, and they were just too much, and they were causing too many issues. So they had to go to the freezer. But um, everything else, I was just enjoying that, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So because I'm sure Zach, he's a duck guy. He's like our duck guy here. I've only raised ducks like once, and we had a predator problem, got in and got rid of my ducks, which really sucked. But what breeds of ducks do you raise?
So I was a mixed breed flock here just recently, and I just barely sold a pile of them because I'm going to be starting over and doing raising just cayugas
Mhm.
and silver spangled Hamburg chickens, as well as my turkeys and my geese. But I'm not breeding them for meat or selling or anything. Eventually, I'd like to add a tom to my mix and raise a couple meat turkeys
Yeah,
each year. But for now, I just do the ducks. I keep the ducks for meat. This year, we want to do ducks and chickens for meat. And then I'm gonna raise a pile to add to the freezer. And then we also want to get into showing the birds we're gonna be going to, it's the Northeast Poultry Congress that's coming up here in January. So we're gonna be going to that and hopefully picking up some more cayuga hens because
very
the ones
cool.
I hatched out, I only had 6 eggs. So
Hmm. So do
You've
you?
helped me with a lot of my duck problem. Well, one of the major ones that I messaged you earlier this year about one of
oh
my
yeah,
collections.
yes, I remember.
Yeah, she started doing a lot better, and then I was like, I just need to reorganize hens and drakes and everybody. So I actually sold both of them together to go to somebody who had another hen who had like a 5 acre pond or something like that,
Oh,
and they went out there and they've been incredibly happy since then. So
amazing. I love hearing that.
yeah. But you helped me a lot with that because I was like really stressing it. I was like, I don't know anybody who has ducks. Yes, I do. I know somebody who has ducks and who's knowledgeable in that area. So that was I'm very thankful to have been able to message you.
Yeah, I'm not an expert by any means. Like I'm not a big time farmer, but from what I've learned, that first year, because I had the two they're Pekin drakes, so they're huge. So they were beating, and I had khaki Campbells with them, so they were just beating up on them. And I was like, can't really have that. That's just not, they're not happy, they're not thriving. So
Yeah.
learned pretty quickly, just I have to keep my ratios in check with the hens and the drakes, and then I find I have no issues. And with the meat ducks, I can keep them in with the rest of the birds because the males anyway, they don't we slaughter them before they reach sexual maturity, so they're they don't really cause any issues. So that's where I'm able to, and during the summer while these meat ducks are being raised, they're not staying in an enclosed coop. I mean, they're in a run, but they're not in the coop because some of them like to sleep under the trees. They like to get, and I don't mind, because I have the electric fencing and we have battled quite a few predator problems, but we seem to have a pretty good handle on them right now. So hope, knock on wood, don't want to jinx myself, but um, for the most part, we're just trying to keep them safe and keep them happy. So.
Hmm.
Yeah. What has been your biggest predator like trying to get in?
Definitely raccoons. Last year I had a raccoon take two ducks, and then this year I had to take one duck. I took one duck not that long ago, back in October. And what happened was this hen had slept right up close to the fence, and it reached in and grabbed her through the electric fence. So
Yeah.
we lowered the wire so that way anything it couldn't get under, and there was a little more wire so that it wouldn't try to get at her. It didn't look like it got in, so that was good. It just looked like it had grabbed her through the fence. So and then we also, back in the winter of last year, we had a mink that attacked, but thankfully we resolved that very quickly. We got home from a trip and then we discovered the two ducks had died from the mink, and then we were starting to repair the fence or the coop, and then we see this little head poke up from under our shed, and I'm like, whoa, that wasn't a squirrel, that was not a chipmunk,
Hmm.
that was definitely a mink or something. And we looked at it and we're like, oh yeah, it's a mink. So then it went back under the shed. We went and grabbed a gun and came back out to continue fixing it. And we're like, well, if we see it, we'll grab it. And I
Yeah.
was just happened to be, I forget what I was doing exactly. I want to say I was just handing like screws over to my boyfriend. And I see it out of the corner of my eye come back out of from underneath the shed and try to dart out, and I was like, there it is. And so he grabs the gun, and we dispatched it, and it we were so surprised it happened as quickly as it did, because
Yeah.
we were thinking it was going to try to come back, and it was. I mean,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was. Yeah, it ran out of, because let's see, we were coming out of the house with after grabbing the gun, and it had ran out from inside the coop. So it had gotten back in, but then run back out. So that's
Yeah.
thankfully, while we were working on it, we spotted it. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Our biggest problem has been, which it really hasn't been a problem, it was we have a neighborhood cat that comes around, and when I was just doing the dog kennel size holes in the fence, it grabbed through and tore her leg a little bit. And I was like, well, this looks like it can, I mean, it's not going to be the same, but maybe it'll repair itself in a way that she'll actually be able to live or whatever. And I was cleaning it. We were doing everything that we should have been doing. And when it was in the middle of July too, so it was not a good time for bugs or anything, but washing it out, and then she passed from it. But part of me is glad that she passed, because she wouldn't have been able to keep up with everybody else anyways, and I just don't want to someone to be in pain or hurting. So in a way it was a better solution to that. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
cats aren't good either.
The raccoons are
Yeah.
our biggest issue, honestly. We've had like our pen now, because we shelter in our barn. We just built our barn this past year. So we shelter everything in our barn now, and it's super safe. I'm so thankful we finally upgraded to a barn, because our old coop, it was safe, but like not safe enough. Somehow this raccoon manages to, because raccoons are they're just impressive creatures. They're like, they're vicious. They're very aggressive, and when they want something, they want something. So
Oh yeah.
like, I'm like 5'4", 5'5", whatever. My coop is very tall. This thing is crawling up the side of this coop. There's like, I don't even know how it did it. I think it might have crawled up the tree or something. But then it like opened the door and everything, got in, grabbed the chicken right out, just took her. Middle of the night. And the thing is when they find something, whenever predators find something, they're going to come back. And it's so sad. Because we
I
set traps
know.
then the next couple nights, and we caught 2. Because not just 1, but there were 2 of them now. Because then they tell their
Wow.
friends, and it's just like, yeah, let's go get some dinner. It's an easy get in, easy grab. Yeah, it was quite a shame, but you learn from your mistakes. You got your wins and you have your losses, and obviously losing a life on the farm is not the ideal situation, but from that I have since been able to protect my flock in every measure possible.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Have you found that birds of prey go after your ducks, or have they really left them alone?
Yes, actually, I have had some hawk problems. Actually, one just so I've only had 2 total deaths from hawks. I had one last year. It was a baby duck. I had come out. I was outside doing something. I think I was working in the garden, and then I went inside to go get some water. And I no sooner I come back out and I see just legs and a spine left on
Oh,
the ground, and I was like,
that's so
darn it.
sad.
And I didn't know what it was at the time. Like I wasn't,
Yeah.
I've learned the different predators now, but back at that time I didn't know what that predator was. And my boyfriend's pretty knowledgeable at that. He used to have a farm in Maine, and so he goes out and looks at it, and he's like, "Oh, this was a hawk, because there was the feathers in the circle, and
Yeah.
they left the spine and everything." So there was all that. But then this year, one of them just went missing. And I find that typically when they go missing without any evidence of
Mm-hmm.
anything else, and it's in the middle of the day, it's usually a hawk, at least around in my
Yeah.
area.
Was that an
Yeah.
adult that went missing, or a younger?
It was a younger hen, a little hen that, or she wasn't a hen yet, but a little pullet that I had.
No.
She was so sweet. I had 2 of the same one, so I still have one. Now these chickens are going to be going to a new home here shortly. Their new owner is building them another chicken coop, so he has 2 of them. So while I'm building my flock of spangled Hamburgs, I did this last August is I let my silky, or no, my Sumatra sat on the clutch for the longest period, and then she hatched three out, or no, she hatched two out, and then she left with her babies, and then my Silky came in, finished them off, and then I had six of them when I was like, holy crap, there's a ton more birds here than I thought I was gonna get because I thought there was only gonna be the two. So that was a nice surprise. So that's what I'm have right now that I'm finding homes for and whatnot.
So you've said some
And
pretty
how
interesting chicken names so far. Like what breeds do you raise for chickens?
So I'm getting into raising silver spangled Hamburgs. They remind me of like Dalmatians. They're so pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they're mostly seen as like a show bird. So, but they're also really great. They're from Germany, or they're from Germany, and they've got the short combs on their heads. So where I live in northern Vermont, it's
Yeah.
nice for the winter
Yeah.
because I had a rooster with a very large comb last year, and his comb got frostbite because we had a -20 day,
Mm-hmm.
or
mm,
negative. It was like 2 days where we were in a huge
Yeah.
wicked cold, and
Yeah.
um and his poor comb just froze off. So he was just a barnyard mix. I've had some Sumatras that I got from someone who went to the Northeast Poultry Congress. So he had some really awesome, they're Sumatras, they're plain blackbirds. They're beautiful. Um, and then I had some from my very first chickens I got, some Buff Orpingtons, very basic, plain. I had a white silky. I had some Polish. I had a Bunt Polish, and then just another regular Polish chicken. She wasn't able to tell me what exactly breeds it was, but it she was pretty, so I had those, and then my guinea hen. and- But other than that, I think that's all the breeds I've yeah, that's all the breeds that I've had so far.
So
and
do you
what geese? You said you have geese too. What geese do you?
Oh, I have so they're kind of a barnyard mixed goose, but they are the lady I got from, she had Sebastopol, Roman tufted, and I want to say, was it Emden? It might have been Emden, but I know he's got the tuft on the top of his head, and he's got the marks of the dark grayish brown,
mm-hmm.
and then he's got little feathers hanging off of him, so he's kind of a
That's
funky looking dude, so I
that's
call him Abe
cool.
Lincoln.
That's cool.
Got a little beard on his chin and then a little top knot, so that's where he got his name from.
That's pretty cool.
Awesome.
Now do you show your breeds like your ducks, your geese, your chickens? Do you show at all?
No, this is the year I'm starting to get into it because, I wanted to pick a breed that I could do show and
Mm-hmm.
also do meat. I wanted, and
Yeah,
also for eggs and for breeding, and
exactly.
I know that a lot of people, like, they don't really want barnyard mix animals. A lot of people want purebred, and
Mm-hmm.
um whereas I'm trying to do a little bit of both to be multifaceted.
Yeah.
I like being able to sell babies, but I also like being able to have a bird that can provide me with meat and plenty of eggs. Like, I don't, I mean, I'm khaki Campbells are great for laying eggs. They lay a ton of eggs each year, like almost double the amount from a Cayuga, but I don't eat eggs so often that, like, I find I have them coming out of my ears and I can't even keep up. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm like, I don't mind taking a little bit less. And um actually I had seen someone, their Cayuga had, I want to say it was second place possibly in the past
Mm.
few years, in 2020 maybe, or um
Hmm.
2021 they had won with a Cayuga. So that's something I want to get into. So want to get the book, The American Standard of Perfection, and
Mhm.
really work on
Yeah.
getting my breeding stock ironed out and get the best birds that I can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Where would you say your genetics are with that? Like, are they decently built now, or just not barnyard mix, but just kind of like thrown together with different things?
So the farm I got him from was a nice farm in Vermont. I don't know if you've heard of it, it's Sugar Feather Farms. She does all sorts of heritage breed birds, and she has a very high show quality Cayuga Drake that she bought for her breeding stock. She's working on her stock as well, but she had told me, that her birds were really really doing well, and so I got them from her. The birds I kept, they could be better conformation, so I'm gonna work on breeding them and getting better birds. And then when I go to the poultry congress here in January, I'm gonna hopefully come back with some better quality hens and then eventually my Drake right now, his bill should be darker. It should be like a grayish, not total black, but a grayish
Yeah.
black color. And it's kind of yellowish, so it's not the best conformation. Other than
Mm.
that, he's beautiful, he's big, his feathers are really nice, but his bill could be better. So that's where, unfortunately, he'll retire to the freezer once we get a Drake.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
we have we'll keep the hens. I'd like to work on my hen too because she has a little bit of white in her that I'm not happy with. Um, but that's where I'd like to get a couple better hens, and then I won't put her I don't usually put females to the freezer. I sell them, and
Yeah.
she's still a purebred, really good quality Cayuga. It's just a cull, a better quality, she'll
Yeah.
do great on someone's farm, she's not a bad bird by any means. She's a great temperament too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to do the blue Swedish and the Welsh Harlequins.
Yeah.
So those are two that I'm trying to work on. I've talked to this one guy. People in North America are really very aggressive when they're trying to do anything. Like it has to be a certain way, and where someone who's just trying to ask questions, they're not very like they're like any bird is a call because they want you to buy from them or not take the time to develop it. And I talked to this one guy in Australia, and he was working on his birds, and he actually just bought a show-winning Drake, Cayuga Drake, to breed with his blue Swedishes, and just got rid of anything that didn't have the white bib um or was too dark, and that
Yeah.
just added the body mass to it. But it was great genetics on the Cayuga to back with the Swedishes.
That's awesome. Yeah, I had blue Swedish last year as well. I had a bunch of drakes, and those I ended up selling off. I didn't end up putting those to the freezer. But I had some females, and my cousin wanted some blue Swedish to add to her flock. So I was like, I really liked them, but I was like, I knew I wanted Cayugas at the time. Like that's been a bucket list breed. So I was like, yeah, I'll
Yeah,
sell off the blue Swedish and I'll get Cayugas next year. So that's what I did. I went and got Cayugas, and then I just fell in love with them. And then I was just like attending chicken swaps, trying to sell my birds. And I wanted to be able to provide like purebred, high quality birds.
yeah, and that's what I want to do. Like I don't necessarily want to get to like where I'm only giving out standard perfection birds because I'm not showing them. So to me, it doesn't really not matter. But I don't want to get to that point where I'm only pushing out show winning birds for people who are going into shows. My thing is I'd like to sell birds that are as close to perfection as possible,
Hmm.
but people still have to put in a little bit of effort on their part, like continuing good breeding practices, which a lot of people don't continue, which is very frustrating, especially for people who are pushing out good quality birds. And I've had a lot of people talk to me about my Welshes in particular, and they're like, they're really good bodies. They're as close to the original ones from Europe as possible. And I was like, that's great. I want to continue doing that. And I also, it's it's a lot of information. I know you get that with the Cayugas and everything, but it's just picking out things that different qualities from different ones. And sometimes you get a really great bird, and sometimes you don't get really great birds.
Right. Yeah, no, I definitely, yeah, it's been a fun process, but I had Welsh Harlequins, but my Harlequins weren't the best conformation because I got them from the lady who I got my geese from, and she had a couple pecans in her flocks, so they weren't totally pure, and one of them came out as a Harlequin, or sorry, as a pecan. It was the one big white egg out of the rest of the smaller white eggs, and but I loved the breed. Like I did like my Harlequins.
They're so sweet and docile, at least mine
Mm.
are, and they're just
Yeah.
excellent foragers too. So it I really like them.
Yes, they're great.
How long, we skipped this one, but how long have you been farming?
I started in 2020, so we're almost at 4 years now. I hatched them in March, so in March we'll be coming up on 4 years that I've been doing it, and I we want to expand, and eventually do more once we can get onto
Yeah.
more land and an actual permanent spot where we can grow out the flock and do more animals, not just animals for showing or birds for showing, also doing some animals for our freezer and having a little farm.
Yeah. What are your dreams with like what yeah, you like your future, like what animals would you want to have and stuff like that?
Well, honestly, we had one thing we've been really throwing around lately because I run a little crochet business on as well as doing my little farm, and so talked about it where we want to do possibly raise fiber animals for making our own yarn. So we want to do alpaca possibly. Alpaca, sheep, something like that. And we probably won't do like we'll probably send them off to be sheared, or we do the shearing ourselves and send off the fleece to be carded, washed, and dyed and everything. So we were thinking about doing something like that. So we're really gonna do the research and get a business plan and whatnot before doing something like that. But it's it's a direction we want to do that, and then still do the birds and have our do our show birds, do our raise the best quality that we can, and sell hens, keep drakes from the freezer, raise meat chickens. I would love to have goats. I really want to have goats for milk. That would be a lot of fun for me. Because I would one, I'm a huge milk drinker, and two, I just really would love the idea of having my own milk, and goats are just amazing. I've
Mm-hmm.
learned a lot about them this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What breed of goat were you thinking?
Honestly, I love the Nigerian dwarfs. They're so cute.
Yeah.
But I'd have to look. I want to look into more breeds though. I'm not like 100% solid on how many.
Yeah.
I know there's so many breeds out there that I don't even know about. So
The
Yeah.
Nigerians I've heard with them, they just have the better like oversized. They just produce more milk than a standard size dough in comparison. So that's just what I've heard. With that, I did have a question. What do you, if you want to say or not, what do you sell your ducks for? Whether a
so
drake or a hen or ducklings
Yeah,
or
that's what
whichever.
I was gonna ask something similar to that question. Like, do you sell like eggs? Do you sell like the actual like ducks themselves? That was gonna be one of my questions as well.
yeah, so I sell hatching eggs. I sell regular eating eggs, and then I also sell the birds. Sometimes I'll sell them as ducklings, and sometimes I'll raise them up and sell them as adults. If I sell them as a duckling, Cayuga this year, Cayugas typically go for $9 a duckling. So
Mhm.
probably be around that. But when I was doing my mixed breed flock, I was just selling my ducklings for $5 a piece, and then my full grown hens were 20. But for the purebred Cayuga females, they typically can go for I've seen them go for 25 to $40 even for some of them. I'm not looking to get like huge money for it because I'm not, it's just not what I'm about, but I'd like to, get what I can for them just to make, pay the bills, pays for their feed, and
Hmm.
makes it worth it, for
Yeah.
me. Because otherwise, I want to just give away high quality birds, and
Yeah.
'cause I had to pay a pretty penny for the cayugas, so
Yeah.
And I've
Yeah.
seen people doing that where they're selling a drake and two hens for like 150 or 200. And if they're good quality, that maybe, but sometimes I'm like, that's pretty steep for that. But if you are wanting to get started and they are good quality and you're going to keep up with things, that is a good investment for later down the road, I feel like.
absolutely. That's what I'm going to be doing here in January is I'm going to be taking a little bit of expecting to go into it, spending a little bit more money on I need to find a spangled Hamburg rooster. So I'm expecting to spend, you know, 50 some odd dollars possibly for a rooster, you know. I don't need to buy the show winner, you know.
Yeah.
I just need to find one that has good enough confirmation to get me started and get me going, and so that I can work on my stock. And you know, if I right, the Hamburgs I got did come from a good quality breeder in Vermont. He got them from somebody, so and they attend the poultry congress as well, so they're big into show birds. So um his name is Harry Russell. He was out of Vermont, but he does that's I actually got penciled call ducks from him. And I loved those, but probably gonna if I'm gonna be doing more of the cayugas, I'm thinking about doing pencil call ducks, but I'm not sure. I can mix them if I want to. I have the space to do both of them if I wanted to, but I'm just trying to see like what do I want to focus all my time on, you know, like do I want to focus on because if I'm doing cayugas and spangled hamburgs, you know, it's busy enough in its own, you know, and I only have so many incubators, you know, until I can get a bigger incubator to support like a higher level. Eventually I'd like to get my NPIP certification, you know, but that's
Mhm.
down the road.
Yeah. And that's what, I mean, that's kind of what I've been trying to do, is because I want to do the Cayuga, or not the Cayugas. I have the Welshes and the Blue Swedishes, and then I had the Cayugas, and I really wanted the Cayugas. And I was expecting like the black egg, the really dark egg, which Tractor Supply you can only get so good from there. And that kind of not lowered my expectations, but I was like, next time I need to go to a breeder. I need to find someone who has good genetics. And if I want to do that, then I need to really focus on that. So I got rid of my Cayugas for now. And one day maybe I'll get back into doing Cayugas, but I'm going to focus on the Welsh Harlequins and the Swedishes for right now, because I feel like those are two decent breeds and they're both on the endangered list as well. So I'm like, I might as well try to do what I can on and helping this breed, since I am not completely knowledgeable, but I know a little bit of, to get started and to just
Yeah.
keep them. So
Yeah.
same boat
That's
with
one
you. I'm trying to figure out things like that.
yeah, that's one thing I'm really trying to is breed conservancy. That was something new that I'm, you know, learning about and trying to get into is, you know, because unfortunately for, you know, for example, the pecans that I had, it just shows, you know, they come from a mass breeder. They're meant for meat, and you try to raise them and you try to give them the best life. And sometimes it doesn't matter, like their bones are just so brittle and they're way too big for the structure that they have. So their bodies just don't support it. And one of them, I believe, died of a heart issue. She just died in overnight, and I found her no trauma, nothing to her, just she was gone. So I was like, you know, and then I had another one that just during breeding season, and I didn't have too many drakes. All I had was my small khaki drake. So and he bred her, and she ended up with a broken like a really broken I want to say it was her hip, but it could have been her femur. But it was like you could just feel the crepitus when you touched it. And I tried to splint it, try to help her. It wasn't gonna be fixed, and that's one thing, like if it, I don't typically take my birds to the vet unless it's something that just
Yeah.
because it doesn't pay, it just isn't worth it, you know?
Yeah.
And I wish it was, because I would
Mhm.
love to save every single one, but just
Mhm.
can't, you know? So I had to put her down, but she, you know, I'm okay with that. Like I had a lot of fun and with her, and I was happy that I was able to give her a pretty decent life right up until the end. And you know, it is what it is, but
Mhm.
that's why I really like I'll probably never ever have pecans again just because they're
Yeah.
a dime a dozen, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah. With the pecans, I do get that a lot with not wanting to raise them again. I have one, but she was like one of the first two ducks that I got, and I was like, I'm not gonna sell you. I feel bad doing that, and especially since they do develop the leg problems, I'm like, well, I don't really want to get rid of you and then something happened to somebody else. So I'll keep her, but I will probably never do pecans again unless I'm going to do meat ducks. But even then, you can do your own birds and just keep them a little while longer. So, but I'm
Yeah.
expecting problems with her to arise. She's almost 2 now. So,
Yeah.
and I know around that time.
Yeah, I had let all the ladies live out their lives. I was like, but the last one, that's what happened is during the breeding season, she shattered her hip, and so the other ones just like I said, one of them died of the just of unknown causes just overnight, and then the other one had a shattered hip, and not I wouldn't say. I don't know if it was shattered, but I know it was pretty messed up because she just was limping and I was trying to help her. And then I went out one night or one morning and she had not gone to bed with the others. She had gone out and she actually died in the run. So she didn't go to bed that night. Um so that sucked. But that's where I was like, after losing those three, I was like, this sucks. I don't want to go through that again because I had gotten attached to them. I was like, they're so sweet. Like I I mean, as much as I don't like the health issues that come with pecans, I still think they're not a they're not a terrible duck. They're not. It's
Yeah.
just my personal preference, and if and I get that there are a lot of people's like first introduction into the duck world, like I know they weren't necessarily mine, but I know a lot of people around me, that are getting ducks now, and I'm like, and they're getting pecans, and I know that some people like they have the jumbo pecans and then they have regular ones. The ones that we were given were jumbo pecans, so that's probably why we had so many issues, but maybe the other ones were better.
Yeah. Like I would always take it. Like if somebody came to me and they were like, I'm getting rid of my ducks or I can't keep them anymore, and they had a pekin or two, I would probably take them against my better judgment, just because I would try to give them the best possible place. But I wouldn't go out and like ordering ducks or something. I wouldn't be like, yeah, I want pecans. So, but
Yeah.
I don't know where you stand with the Tractor Supply and bigger hatcheries and their breeding practices, because I know for small breeders like you with your ducks and other people, it's very frustrating for people like us to get ducks. And I know it happens a lot with the Welsh Harlequins and the Appleyards because the drakes are so similar. And if they have something happen to a Welsh Harlequin or an Appleyard and just swap the other one for it, and they're like, oh, nobody will know. A lot of people, if they're wanting to get into showbirds, then they're like, well, this sucks because something like there's an obvious disqualification for you.
Right. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of mass hatcheries. I have yet to order from one. I have gone to Tractor Supply and had birds, but the only birds I've actually bought from Tractor Supply were the Buff Orpingtons when I wanted to start getting into chickens, and then um the blue Swedish ducks. They had those. I got them at the same time I got the chickens. I saw them, and and I was of course affected by oh, they're cute. And I was like, I do want more ducks, and I haven't had a blue Swedish before, so I was like, you know what, this is fine. And then, and I can't say there was anything wrong with them. They were healthy and happy, but it I'm not sure, how all their practices are, but some of them I don't I'm not sure about how it is. It is a little harder for,
Yeah.
the small breeders to be able to get money for it, especially because they're probably selling it at a cheaper price because they can afford that, where
Mm-hmm.
someone like myself who has to spend the money up front to invest to be able to, raise high quality birds,
Right.
I have to get the money back somehow.
Yeah, and
Right.
I've had I've gotten all my birds from Tractor Supply except for one order to Meyer, which was shocked me the price because it wasn't. I didn't think it was going to be that expensive, and for the birds it wasn't, but the shipping was
You,
like 3 or 4 times more expensive than that. I was like, never again am I going to do that. I'm going to find somebody local or Tractor Supply if I need to. But I've had with my ducks, the blue Swedishes, got two last year and pretty good quality. I mean, the male, he has some red bleed through, which isn't what you want, but it's not so bad where you shouldn't breed them on. And then the hen looks really good. And I got two this year from a different store. And they are so, like, they're just so not bad, but they're just not what the breed should be. Like the female, she's built more like a pekin.
oh yeah.
And I'm like, that's not how the breed's supposed to be. And the male is just like bill colors off, and he's has a lot of red bleed through, and the female is actually showing more red than the male, and it's usually just a problem in the drakes because the color displays through. And I'm like, this sucks, and I'm gonna get rid of them because I'd rather keep two better quality from the ones that I got first time that were better than try to fix something that I don't think it's not fixable, but it would take so much longer than I don't want to set myself back by trying to fix them instead of going off something that's already built better in the beginning.
Right, right. So then it's worth your time more, when you're not having to correct crappy genetics, whereas you can, if you find outsource it to a local breeder. I mean, I don't think that's horrible to reach out to a local breeder, I'd rather support local than that's one
Yeah.
thing I've been trying to make a point of is trying to support local, like local everything.
Mm-hmm.
Even I mean, there are some things obviously I have to go to a grocery store for just like
Right.
anybody else, but certain meats and certain things it'd be nice
Yeah.
to not have to rely on.
I think
Yeah.
a lot of
And I've
people
had
more recently are realizing like local, like farmers are very important. And I think people are realizing like, yeah, it might cost you a little bit more to buy from local, but like I think a lot of people are starting to like realize that like this is somebody's lifestyle. This is paying somebody's bills, like supporting small businesses and local farmers, buying things from people who are just starting up, supporting that. I think we've really started to realize that as like as a nation and stuff. I think we've realized that like, you know what, like it's kind of important to
and getting back
support.
to your health too. And I think
Exactly.
that's why a lot of people have started because it's so
And even
much
that
better for
too.
you than anything.
And
Mm-hmm.
even that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And with the doing local, because I've had the person that I got my Welshes from completely new from to them, but I was like trying to have a decent connection with her, not like anything crazy, just asking questions and bouncing off like, how do you do this? How do you do this? Just basic questions that I feel like. And she was not having it. And I'm like, that and as a breeder, I get that you don't want to be asked a bunch of questions, but I also think that it's important to have a relationship with the person that has your birds because if there's problems down the line, you can know those problems. You can be like, okay, so both of us have had these, so it's something that happened here instead of being like it could have happened anytime in the past 5 or 6 years. And that was really frustrating, but I've been like, I'm gonna continue a connection with anybody that I sell my ducks to. If they have any questions, I'm gonna more than happily answer them if I know the answer to the question. But where do you stand on that? Like keeping a connection or
Oh, I have no problem with people asking me questions. I'm pretty transparent about things because it's like if someone wants to know something, I'm not gonna make someone pay or I'm not gonna make someone feel bad for asking me a question, especially if I
Mm-hmm.
can help. If not, I always refer someone to someone who knows more than I do. And I always precede with, I am not an expert. Like this is something I learned through trial and error, and
Exactly.
I remember that when I asked you the question with the Cayuga, you were like, I'm not it could be anything, but
Exactly.
this is in my experience, this is what I would say is most probable. And that
Mm-hmm.
helped a lot. And I was like, it is great. And it was the overbreeding, obviously, and I was not knowledgeable on that, but trial and error.
Exactly.
Right. Oh yeah, my first year I
Exactly.
had no clue about the Drake ratios and stuff. Like that's where I had two males, two females. I really should have at a minimum I should for one Drake I should have three or four hens, to make things happier. And that's if they're really happy. This year I had two drakes to I think 10 females. So I had a really good ratio going and my Cayuga males that I just recently processed, they weren't being mean or anything. They were getting along just fine. So the flock was at Zen. It was great and nobody had any issues, but it's been nice to not have because when I get dealing with that overbreeding, I'd have to do a lot more like wound care and stuff. And I just I'm like, I don't want to have to, I like them when they're healthy. I don't want to have to do wound care all the time. So,
It takes so long to actually get like for the hen to recover from that. So if you only have a limited number of hens to begin with, and you're looking for eggs or for ducklings or whatever, that really hits you hard because you can't do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
Do you have any? Sorry, Ray.
what do you see like with the breeding and stuff? Because I know you talked a lot about breeding, like your ducks, your chickens, your geese, whatever. What do you think like your end goal with all of that breeding and hatching? Like, what's your end goal with all of that?
I also really just give people birds they're happy with because, I know that I know there's people out there that want to support local and they want to support farmers and small hobby farmers like myself, and um I'd like to be able to give that to people. And I just think I think it's important for their health. It's not just for a pretty bird, it's for their health, it's for the quality of their genetics, because reality is a better quality genetic bird is going to be a happier bird, So if
Yeah.
it's prone to heart issues or lung issues, like whatever it may be prone to, that's where I want to work hard on getting the closest to the standard of perfection. But, there's going to be ones that I'm gonna want to I'm not gonna keep, but I'm not gonna want to put them to the freezer either. Like, I can't say that every meal will go to the freezer because I think it's important to sell pairs because a lot of people just leave drakes behind, and I know that you don't want to have too many. So I would never want to make someone take a drake if they didn't want it, but I want to be able to offer the option, if someone wants to buy a pair or buy a trio, then
Yeah.
I want to be able to offer that to people. And I won't be, I don't sell my meat or anything. That's for personal consumption only. And same thing with the eggs. Or actually, no, because I sell my eggs at a local farmer's market that I do. And I get a lot of people that love the duck eggs. So that's something I pretty well, like, right now my egg laying is pretty well at a lull. Because I got rid of all my duck egg layers. All my hens are gone now. So the one hen I have, she just hasn't started laying yet. So I'm just waiting on her, waiting on the Hamburgs to start laying. So I'll get eggs soon, but it'll be a bit. So I'm just trying to do the eggs. I'd like to do the hatching eggs. And that's another thing I'd like to be able to do for people is provide hatching eggs, because I know for me, I love the hatching experience. I love putting them in the incubator, watching them grow, candling them, everything about it. So that's just
And
something.
you form better bonds with your birds when you're the one hatching them out. Where if you're getting them from Tractor Supply, first person they saw, they probably imprinted on, and then gone. And then the same thing happened again, and it's like, whoa. And so I definitely prefer hatching out, but it's hatching out's probably one of the funnest things for sure.
I agree. It definitely results in friendlier birds. Like, I can tell the difference in the birds that I didn't hatch versus ones I did. Like, I didn't hatch out these two, for example, I hatched out with the mama hen that had hatched out the six chickens this year. Three of them she rejected, so I had to take them inside, and just the difference in the two, it's just, I don't know.
Yeah. Have you ever heard? Because I was talking to a bunch of other people about it, and this guy mentioned it briefly. He said, "Don't use like the first eggs or like the smaller of the eggs because there will be smaller birds overall." Because he was doing something with breeding and he was trying to get a mini rowan, and he was using the first eggs, and it kept resulting in smaller and smaller birds because I mean, it was just something fun that he was trying to do, and he realized that. But have you heard anything with that, or
I haven't, but it honestly does make sense because, I'm not trained in like animal science. I was trained in human science. So if I look at it from obviously knowing there's differences, humans just, I don't know, it's just a whole different process, I guess. Um, yeah.
Reagan? Do you have anything else that?
No, I just had a question, but now it slipped through my brain. Gosh dang it.
One of those things.
I hate when that happens. What
I
would you
know.
say? Because I'm just gonna keep moving. Maybe I'll remember it. What would you say your favorite thing about this whole lifestyle is?
Really, it's just being able to, I love being able to provide food for my family and knowing where it came from, knowing that they were healthy and happy. And honestly, I just love raising the birds and watching them. It's like therapy for me. It's the best. It's mental health. It's everything, it's so important to me to have happy, healthy birds. And it's honestly, it doesn't feel like work to go out and take care of them and
Yeah,
make sure that they have fresh bedding and nice and fresh water and whatnot. And like I would literally just do anything for my birds, like and that's where, I'm like, I know they have a good, happy, healthy life.
yeah.
I, and
And
it's
that's the
just,
best thing. That's
yeah,
the
and it's
best thing,
nice to
honestly.
feel independence.
Yeah, definitely. I just remembered my question. So because you're like into the whole breeding aspect, what would you recommend to people who are, wanting to get started in hatching and breeding their own flocks of, ducks, chickens, geese, whatever? What would you recommend for them in particular?
So I started out well, obviously I had just a coworker. So if you know somebody that raises birds, see if they be I mean, that kind of depends on your interest too. If you're interested in what I'm doing, which is, trying to do breed conservancy and raising purebred birds and trying to, stick with one breed and work on the quality of genetics and everything, then you'd want to maybe reach out. There's Facebook groups you can be a part of. Like I'm a part of a bird fanciers club in Vermont, and I that's where I started. That's where I went and found my geese. That's where I found my Welsh Harlequins because I was interested in a very specific breed, and I knew that I didn't want to go to a mass hatchery, and I knew I didn't want to go to Tractor Supply because they didn't have Harlequins. I don't know if Tractor Supply sells Harlequins. I've never seen them there,
I
but
haven't either.
no, so
They
I
said
don't think
they get in like occasionally they'll get in like a silver alpha yard, but that's about like the rarest that they've ever gotten. And even then that's like once every 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, and that's what I noticed with them. So I wanted to try something else. So I went and joined this bird fanciers club. I went to my first chicken swap, and there was people there that like there was this one farm that brings all their call ducks, and they sell just call ducks. And then there was other people that were selling, they sell chickens. Some people have your barnyard mixes, but that's where I got started. And then as I was wanting to get more into higher quality, that's when I started looking for small Vermont farms. Like that's where I looked, I went on to Google and I searched small small breeders in Vermont for birds and for cayugas. And then I found Sugar Feather, and she does lots of different stuff. So, and when I talked with her, she was really good about explaining where her genetics came from and how, she was really working on her breeding standards as well and trying to provide high quality birds. So, if you can find a small farm, that maybe specializes in a breed. And if you're willing to travel, you might even have to travel a little bit. Like I went 3 hours to get my geese. I mean, could I have traveled and gotten a purebred goose? Yeah, probably. But at the time, I'm not really looking to get into purebred geese or like hatching and selling. I hatched and sold geese last year, but I just, I don't charge super high price. I charge what I was charged for the geese, which was $20 for a little gosling. And I've seen other goslings that these hatcheries go for more. So because they are barnyard mix, I try to keep that. But I did, but I think the best way to find a breed you want or to figure out how to find any bird that you want is really to find these groups, find these websites, find these small farms and, and try to make sure they're reputable. You don't want to go to some
Right.
if it's I don't know, like just you want to make sure it's a quality breeder. You want to ask the
Hmm.
questions and make sure they know what they're talking about before you be like, "Oh yeah, I want it."
Exactly.
Yeah. And I like what questions would you recommend for someone who's gone to a breeder, just first time they've ever heard about them, first time they've ever met them, what questions would you ask the breeder?
So I'd want to ask, where they got their genetics from. Did they order from a mass hatchery? Did they go to this poultry congress or these other big poultry shows? Because I find what I'm learning is these poultry shows are really the best places to go if you want to get high quality birds. And yes, you're going to pay more for it, but if it's worth it to you, it's honestly what you it's worth it to go. I mean, there's people out there that don't care for purebred and they just want whatever duck they want. And that was absolutely me. Like I definitely, even just last year, I would, I wanted the mixed breed flock. I wanted to have as many as I could, and I wanted to try a bunch of different breeds. But once I tried them all out, then I was like, I kind of narrowed it down. I was like, okay, this breed I don't care for. I have a limited amount of space. So you just want to kind of, just so back to the thing, want to make sure you see where your genetics came from and then ask them how is their temperament. You want to ask, do they know the bird standards? Do they know what the bird's supposed to look like? You want to, and that's where this book, that I'm going to be getting here soon. I want to learn everything. You want to learn everything there is to know about the breed, so that way you do know. So even if you don't have access to this book, like go on Google, search up what is the breed standard for a Welsh Harlequin or a Cayuga or whatever duck it is, and then really ask the person, do they know that? Are they able to answer that? Or are they elusive? If someone's not willing to answer that question, I find that a little bit of a red flag because it's like, why aren't you willing to answer that? Like I'm more than happy to share where I got my cayugas from, who my source is from. Like I want people to know what they're getting. I don't want them to be tricked into some crappy genetic birds.
And this is really just a question for me. I got pictures of the stock from the breeder that I got them from. If I'm selling mine, would you like, and people did have questions, send that to and they asked for it, obviously send it to them, but like send that picture because I mean the birds are beautiful even in the picture. They did take a little while longer to get to the coloring they should have been to, but that wasn't as bad as something that's never going to get to that standard.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, definitely if you can tell the person where you got them from, like give the person's name and like a contact so that way if they want to contact the person themselves and ask more questions and then they
Yeah.
can do that. Like when someone asks me where I get my hamburgers from, I always give them the contact name for the guy I got them from. And even when I start selling hamburgers, I'm still gonna give his name out because he helped me to get started. And
Yeah.
he we're in different parts of Vermont, so we're like he's 3 hours away from me. So, it's helpful to have people that are friends in the business that want to help you. And I find typically people do want to help you and not I don't find there's a ton of people wanting to do breeding. I haven't found a ton of like I said, I only found the one Cayuga breeder in Vermont, and I was shocked that I was able to find that because Vermont's a but Vermont is kind of known as agriculture not I don't want to say agricultural state, but we're known for our dairy farms and whatnot, and it's just dairy farms everywhere around here. So I think it's nice to have that though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Most
And it's
definitely.
really, we've talked a lot about that, of talking, like just bringing up community. We went to the HOA event and a lot of people were just, it's good doing things like that and forming connections with people, whether it's a long-term connection or a short-term connection, just helping somebody get on their way. Like with you, whenever you sell ducks, you're helping other people with their own duck flocks and also questions and everything else. But you're really able to mentor them in a way and just watch everything go on from there. And you see how happy that those ducks make people and stuff like that. It's just really rewarding to
Yeah.
you as the breeder. No matter how much you sell a bird for, it's more rewarding than just the money that was exchanged.
For me, it's really as I want to make sure my birds go to a good home. That's another thing is when you have a high quality bird and you put them at a higher price, not like not trying to take people's money or anything, but when you're trying to put them at a price, you can kind of scare away the ones that, there's people that aren't going to be willing to spend the money because they don't have, and you don't have to have like the most amount of money to be able to raise birds, but to be able to raise them responsibly, they have to be able to have the basics and the bare minimum. And I find if people are willing to spend the money on the bird itself and want that, they have the heart for it. They want to take care of it. They're not gonna go and dump it in a lake. And that's my biggest thing is I ask people before I sell my ducks, like, have you raised ducks before? Do you know what they entail? Do you know about
Yeah.
them? And I'll
I
give
feel
if
that
someone
too.
really
And
wants.
some people are really like rude about that, and they're like, you're questioning whatever. I'm
Well,
like, no, I'm just
yeah,
sure.
especially if you've put so much time and effort into raising them, and then just to like give them away to somebody who's just gonna what? Put them in their freezer? Like you want it to go to a good home, like Zach. Zach lucked out. They went to a huge pond. That's awesome. That's awesome for them. Yeah, and I totally get that because you really do create that bond with your animals. I mean, there is that separation, and I've talked about this before, separation from like they are still livestock. They're still are, they were given to us for a purpose. And having to separate that, it is difficult. But the reality for me is I gave them a very good life while they lived here as long as they could. And throughout the whole thing, of course, if I'm getting rid of any of my birds, I want to make sure they go to a good place because I put so much time and effort working with them and creating a bond. So it totally makes sense. It does.
Yeah.
Mhm,
So I
absolutely.
think we're coming down to the last couple minutes of this podcast episode. But I know you said a bit about like some of your like businesses or whatever. Do you want to like, plug your socials or your whatever you have? We'll have everything linked below in this video, guys, but like you want to just plug your whatever you have?
Yeah, so my little hobby farm is run on Another Duck Lady on Instagram. I do a little crochet business, so it's Kelsey Crochets with a K, so Kelsey and then crochets with a K. But
Mhm.
if you're more interested in the farm stuff is all on Another Duck Lady. So that's where I post all the birds and all the different things, all the videos and entertainment.
Awesome. Awesome.
It's very entertaining. I love watching your stuff. Like I love when it comes up in there and it's just following through everything. I really enjoy that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I have a lot of people that love seeing like every morning if I don't post a story of my birds coming out of the coop in the morning, they're like, "Oh, missing the birds today, missing the flock." And so
Hmm.
I forget that, there's other people out there that like seeing it too. But I forget that because I enjoy watching other people's flocks as well. I like to see the growth and what people are doing in their lives because as like you said, community, it's one of my favorite communities to be a part of. It's been so welcoming and so kind, so I'm
Yeah.
enjoying it.
So guys,
That
go
is a big community
go.
wise, is
Mhm.
that it's very sorry, but it is a very welcoming community. No matter what you're doing, what parts or aspects, it's not just like ducks. It's not just ducks or chickens. It really is the umbrella category of farming, homesteading. Nobody here really. I haven't really met anybody who's actually for this lifestyle and is really harsh to other people who are wanting to start or
Right.
anybody else who lives this way.
Hmm. Yeah.
So guys, go check out all her stuff. We'll have it all linked down below this video. But I think that's everything for today's episode. Thank you for joining us. You gave a lot of very useful information. And
Yeah, thank you.
got yeah, guys, if you're interested in like getting into hatching and breeding, there's a lot of if you watched it all the way through, there's a lot of interesting stuff here. But I mean, if you have any questions, she's your girl. Go hit her up on Instagram and whatnot, and go check her out and ask her questions because I'm sure she seems pretty good to answer and she knows her stuff. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, guys. It was a blast. Had a good time.
So guys, I think that's everything for today's episode. Thank you guys for joining, and we'll see you all in the next one.